So good evening, everyone. Today is the March 10th Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee meeting. Everyone should be connected. Oh, it's just gonna go right back to where I was. Sorry about that. Everyone should be connected via audio. If you called in, we will take pauses to unmute you for a chance to participate in this evening's events. The presentation is being recorded. We post that to our garbage and recycling website within 1 week. If you have any questions this evening, you can submit those to the Q&A and then the panelists will receive those. And we have 2 time allotments to address questions this evening. We also, it's just doing its own thing tonight. We are offering translation services. At the bottom, if you hover over, it'll pull up a menu bar. And from there on interpretation, you either need to select the English or the Spanish room. And then lastly, well, our committee chair has not joined us quite yet, but the committee chair may recognize a public attendee. Again, you could use the raise their hand or Q&A feature. We will take time to unmute those that have called in as well so they can participate. We have designated time on the agenda. Once you have been recognized, the chair will give you a chance to respond, and there may be a time limit, and it could be limited just to the subject at hand. If any new business arises or is suggested during the public comment period, we will put that on the next meeting's agenda. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and then we'll go through and do introductions. So my name is Erin Stein. I'm the Solid Waste and Recycling Operations Supervisor. I'm also the moderator for this evening's proceedings. And with that, I will send it over to Kathy Folsom.
Hi, I'm Kathy Folsom, and I'm a Senior Policy Coordinator for the Solid Waste and Recycling Division with Washington County.
Okay, Tom.
Tom Eggleston, non-voting member of the Solid Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee and Solid Waste and Recycling Division Manager with Washington County. Thank you.
Myra.
Sí, hola, mi nombre es Mayra Hernández y también soy parte como miembro de la comunidad.
Sue.
My name is Sue Shade. I'm a public member living in unincorporated Washington County.
Ricardo.
Good evening, Ricardo Palazuelos, bilingual staff with Solid Waste and Recycling.
Pete.
I'm Pete Pastors. Likewise, I'm a public member of this advisory board and I live in unincorporated Washington County.
Sandra.
Hi, I'm Sandra Smith. I'm a public member and a resident of unincorporated Washington County.
Vinod.
I'm Vinod Singh, industry member, also living in unincorporated Washington County.
Ashvin.
Ashvin Nagaraja, a public member.
Brad.
I'm Brad Anderson. I'm attorney for Washington County and advisor to this Solid Waste Garbage and Recycling Committee, GRAC.
And then we have 2 interpreters as well. We have Victor and Concha here assisting us.
All right, thank you, Erin. I'll go ahead and run the agenda until Ken shows up, if that's okay with everybody else. So first thing on our agenda this evening is some updates from the Solid Waste and Recycling Division. So I'll start off and I'll also hand it off to Kathy to give some updates in a minute. And Brad maybe has some updates to share with the committee about stuff. So rate review, we are entering into rate review season. This is a busy time of year for staff. Erin leads our rate review process. And she will be giving a presentation after action item at this meeting this evening. giving everybody kind of a rate review primer. We have several new members this year with the first time of rate review. So we're looking forward to going through this process together, and happy to work with you all to make sure you feel comfortable with the amount of information you have. There'll be some changes this year from last year, and Aaron can go over those more detail after the action item this evening. Next update, business food scraps requirement is a policy that was adopted in 2019 by the Board of Commissioners after this committee's recommendation was slated to go into effect March of 2020, and then we paused due to the pandemic. So that program is now rescheduled to start on March 31st of 2022. So end of this month. Our business team has been working really hard to get everything together, and they will be sending out notification letters to businesses at the end of this month, letting them know that that food scraps requirement is starting again, and they will be working with businesses over the next year to bring them into compliance with that program. Related to that, last year's rate review, the board approved, after your committee's recommendation, a adjustment to costs in unincorporated Washington County to rates for business food scraps collection. We shifted from a la carte model where businesses would pay essentially garbage rates for food scraps collection service to a bundled model, similar to how we treat recycling in our commercial system. So now businesses that are taking garbage service will also be entitled to 2 times the volume of food scraps service as the garbage service they take. So businesses that have been paying for food scraps collection services will see that charge drop off their bills on the April 1st, starting April 1st billing cycle in unincorporated. And then those costs will be incorporated into the annual rate review process going forward, so that food is fully accessible to businesses and they're not challenged by additional fees to divert that material. Staff recently finished up the annual opportunity to recycle reports. Our team annually reports out to Oregon DEQ on our compliance with the Opportunity to Recycle Act. It's a pretty big process for us. We report on behalf of all of our cooperative cities. So we submitted 10 reports this year on behalf of our city partners and working closely with Metro to line up all the information. So we're happy it's over and we're preparing for next year. We're working with Metro and DEQ on kind of lining up some of the reporting processes to lighten the load on our education team, so they're not reporting every 6 months. We can line up some of those reporting timelines on a calendar year basis. And then finally, update from me is we're nearing we've submitted our final budget packages for this year's budget for the solid waste and recycling division. We have requested an additional position in our division to support the business team and the business food scraps requirement. Funding from Metro will support and offset those increased costs to the county. We do anticipate that position will be included in the budget as it's fully funded from additional grant revenues, and we're hoping we can start recruitment before the fiscal year starts and have someone on board in July to help the team with that business food scraps requirement. We're also seeing some increases in revenue from disposal sites, which we're seeing a pretty substantial increase in gross receipts coming in from the Hillsborough landfill. And also our collectors, solid waste collectors, gross receipts are up and we're anticipating up this year, largely due to increased activity, more revenue moving through the system, and potentially a connection to the rate increase from last year, as we saw a pretty large increase last year. So I'll leave it there unless there's any questions, and I'll pass it to Kathy for some more updates.
Hi, I just had a couple of items that I wanted to bring it to the attention of the committee. The April meeting will be Ken's last meeting. Ken was first appointed to the GRAC in November of 2006. So I'm hopeful that at the next meeting, we'll take a few minutes and recognize his volunteer service on this committee and to the county. That's a really long time, and I want to make sure that we send him off well. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up. I've gotten a few emails from folks nominating either themselves or others for chair or vice chair. You can continue to send me if you're interested, or if you think someone else would do a good job between now and the next meeting, and then we'll revisit elections and see whether you all are prepared to have elections at a meeting or you need some more time. But we've had a vacant chair position for the vice chair for a year and a half. So it would be good to get those leadership positions filled. For example, tonight, instead of Tom running the meeting, the vice chair could have been running the meeting, but we don't have one right now. So hopeful to do that. And then we have been recruiting for Ken's soon to be vacant position, and we will be presenting at a board work session on April 5th. And we're hopeful that that new member will be appointed in time for the May meeting. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Kathy. And there's Ken right there. Ken, you look frozen. Oh, you're moving. Good evening. You there, Ken? Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, thanks for letting me know you'd be a little bit late. We let everyone know, and we just got done with the updates. So
very good.
All right. So the next item, if there's any, is there any questions on any updates? Or Brad, actually, do you have maybe talk? There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I haven't been able to be with you here for a while. Just this meeting conflicts with a lot of other stuff going on. But I'm glad to be here. Since I've last met with you, and I don't know if it's been since the last meeting, there's a couple things I need to talk about. As you recall, you guys were involved with a whole decision-making process regarding whether there should be an exemption for hard to recycle materials. And this committee did not recommend to move forward with that. And so pursuant to the provisions in our code that that was not allowed to be moved forward to the board, that's where it ended. And so that's why you're doing a lot of things right now that you're going to work on later today, tonight, I should say. In addition, Ridwell, who was the proponent of that exemption, has sued Washington County. So we are now in the process of defending Washington County regarding this lawsuit. There's a variety of issues that they raise, and I won't get into them right now. In addition, Ridwell's attorneys have made a public records request, a substantial one that Tom is shepherding through right now. We're at the point where we're estimating the costs, and then if Ridwell says, okay, we're willing to pay the costs for that public records request, then we will collect that the information that they're requesting. And what's important to you is they are requesting the information, any communications that you all had. And so staff, if Ridwell decides to pay the estimated cost, staff will be reaching out to you to find out what your communications were, because you don't use county computers, so we can't find those on our own. So there will be some communication with you on sharing that information with staff, and then we will send that on to Ridwell. So that's an important thing that will likely come up here in the next month in between meetings. And which raises the issue of when, I don't know, Ken, if you want to say something now or if you want to wait.
I'll wait. Okay.
But it raises an important issue that communications that you do have are subject to the public records request, the public records law. So you have to be aware of that whenever you're communicating with other folks. And because we are involved in litigation, there's a potential also for discovery, which is more expansive than a public records request, where the parties in the lawsuit can ask for information relating to that lawsuit. We've never really had this come up for a advisory committee before, and so that's why I'm sharing that with you now. And just for your awareness that when you are communicating in writing, that is subject to discovery or a public records request. I think, one other thing I wanted to share with you is that a reminder to you all as an advisory committee that when you go speak to anybody, you cannot speak on behalf of the Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee. You can only speak on behalf of yourself. So that's an important thing for you to remember. As you know, you're involved with some controversial issues right now and may be asked to comment on the subjects. That's all I have. Ken, do you want a follow-up question or?
Wait a minute, I had to unmute, sorry. If they come out and want to examine my computer or have me do a search for something, do I get to charge the same rate that you guys charge for a search?
The answer to that is no. But we have staff that will assist you in this activity. Yeah.
I don't think I have much because I don't send emails about this at all. So, okay. And the same thing with depositions. The deposee is not paid.
You know, you might get a witness fee, but it's not going to cover your costs.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Thank you, Brad. I think
Okay.
that's it, Ken. The next item on our agenda is oral communication, limited to 2 minutes. So if you want to move us into that.
Aaron, have we had anybody sign up for oral communication?
We have, just one moment. I see Pam Kessinger's hand is raised. So just give me one moment and I will give her permission to speak.
So anybody that would like to make oral communication with the committee for this agenda item, please raise your hand and we will call you in the order that you raise your hand.
Okay, Pam, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank each of you for your service to this committee. I know that it could be somewhat challenging, and I appreciate the work that you do. My name is Pam Kessinger. I've been a resident of Aloha for more than 20 years, and in the unincorporated Washington County. I appreciate the efforts of the local exclusive franchise for garbage and recycling, waste management, to include additional categories of items to be recycled. I hope the company will continue to refine their approach and find ways to fairly fund this additional work. The current proposal, though, however, is at best inadequate, in my opinion. Waste management plans to add new items for pickup, but will have them commingled. The advantage of Ridwell Incorporated is that each item they take is in a separate bag. The bags are labeled, they are easy to sort. Their return and reuse rate is high. I doubt waste management could come close to that high rate. I highly value Ridwell's efficient and lower cost service. I cannot find nearby recycling events in a predictable, reliable way. I do not have time to wait behind dozens of cars to get my recyclables returned. While this committee works through the details of this proposal and the intricacies of exclusive franchise agreements for garbage and recycling, I would plead with you to consider the dissatisfaction of citizens like me. Ridwell's approach is one that I highly value. I was glad to pay extra for it. I will not opt in to an approach that will have a low return rate or reuse rate, nor subsidize what is essentially only lip service to recycling. Look to the future. Tons of batteries recycled, light bulbs and plastic film kept from landfills. Reuse integrated into the business plan. Less negative impact on the environment. Ridwell coinciding with waste management, and both clear in their missions and efficient in their costs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
There's also some comments in the Q&A. I'm going to dismiss those, and if you would like to make public comment, can you please do so during the public comment period? We will not be answering the Q&A questions for this section. Thank you.
Okay, next up, I'm just going in the order that the hands are raised. I have Caleb Weaver.
Good evening, members of the committee. It's Caleb again. I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words, and as with the previous speaker, appreciate all of your all's work to sort through these issues. I want to just highlight a few of the major concerns we have with the proposal being supported by the haulers in front of you for consideration. First, the haulers proposed service would cost between $21 and $28.54 per month for a pickup every other week, even opting for one pickup a week from the haulers. In other words, to get the service at all, it would cost between $11.75 and $15.52, which is this basically the same as Ridwell's $12 to $16 a month for a much more comprehensive biweekly service. Second, there's no featured categories. The categories are limited until there's additional county regulatory approval. Reusable items are largely left out, other than sort of this very nebulous quarterly collection reuse drive. And there's no service for people in multifamily buildings for at least a year. Ridwell offers service to everybody in the areas where we operate. So let's be clear what's going on here. The garbage haulers, who are private companies with monopoly contracts that guarantee a profit on their operations in unincorporated Washington County, are using their influence to add a new service to their monopoly without any clear benefit to the public. Waste Connections has publicly acknowledged that this additional service is a much different business model than their existing contracts, and that they have stood up a competing service in Vancouver, Washington, because they saw that Ridwell could make it work. Thus, what's being proposed here is that Washington County is going to take Ridwell's business idea, force Ridwell to shut down despite widespread support from the public, and give that business on an exclusive basis to these companies with existing contracts. So what exactly does this proposal achieve? Tellingly, the documents prepared for this meeting offer no public policy justification for awarding a monopoly in this particular situation. Indeed, last summer, staff recommended allowing an exemption from county certificate requirements for this service, and in doing so clearly laid out that allowing competition here poses no threat to achieving county policy goals. Further, every single one of the public policy concerns that were raised during the GRAC conversations last year could easily be addressed through a licensing process. So yet, despite the thousands of emails that went into county commissioners from members of the public supporting Ridwell being able to operate, after months of lobbying and thousands of dollars in political donations from the haulers, the county commissioners signaled their support for awarding the haulers a guaranteed profit on this new business rather than forcing them to compete. And now the policy to put that giveaway into effect is in front of you today. You, the members of the GRAC, have the power to send a message tonight that you will look out for what is best for the public, what's best for the environment, and not what's best for the certificated haulers. And while staff has made it clear that ultimately the commission, the board of county commissioners will make the decision here, the GRAC has the opportunity to not recommend this proposal and make a strong statement to the county commissioners that they should look out for their constituents and the future of the planet, not their donors. Please vote no. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So who's next?
Next, we have Jacob. One moment.
Hey, just one question first. Will there be a second open comment period after the proposal for rate increases?
Yeah, we usually have one at the end as well.
Perfect.
And just to clarify, Jacob, the conversation this evening is just an overview of the rate review process. So there's no general rate increase discussion. The discussion tonight about rates is limited to the additional recycling services proposal.
Yeah, I read the, I have some questions about the slide presentation,
Okay.
about the process that that's coming from. But to get back to my initial comment is that I understandably there's with Waste Management going to be maybe offering this new service. It's not equitable. It's not being made available to all those who it would serve in Aloha, unincorporated Washington County, whatnot. And if you're going to make a service available for some, and make it available for all. And if someone can't afford to live in a single family home, and that's why should we punish them if they want to recycle? And if Waste Management says it's too expensive, the answer is tough. And if a company can, if you want to recycle, well, I don't know why we're punishing people who live in a multi-unit. And I'm aware it's down the road, it's maybe next year, but that's the same response I've gotten when I've asked Waste Management specifically about food scraps. It's too expensive. We don't have a facility. There's nowhere to take it. It's too expensive. Tough. You guys, this is, I don't understand. It's so I would say unless it can be made available for all who want it, it should be then you can't just pick and choose winners and losers. And if multifamily apartment houses can't get recycling to the same standards that Ridwell has, they're taking a lot. And if you think about it, I perceive that large haulers have identified that Ridwell as exposing a loophole, if you will. Large haulers spend a lot of money fishing out earbuds and plastic wrap and batteries. Maybe they say they do, but they spend money to sort that out of what gets thrown away. Now, Ridwell, the genius idea, people are paying them and they're doing their own sorting and they're pre-sorting it for them. And so Ridwell's, it's essentially that they people are sorting their own stuff. Now, Waste Management has not had the foresight to offer this service or to have people pre-sort to the specificity that Ridwell does. And that's tough. They missed out. They slept on this one. And so, but again, my basis for this is if you're not going to offer it to everyone, then they don't get an exception. Sorry, Waste Management, give an exception to Ridwell until you're able to offer it to everyone. And the same goes for Ridwell. Ridwell, again, they say they offer it to everybody, but if they have to be able to, everyone who wants to sign up should have a chance to sign up. No pick.
Jacob.
Thank you. Any more, Aaron?
Yeah, next we have Lauren.
Hi, my name is Lauren Tumler. I am in unincorporated Washington County in.
We lost your sound. So there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to reiterate what the previous speakers have been saying. As a resident of unincorporated Washington County in Beaverton, it's really upsetting that Beaverton is not having a problem with Ridwell, and my neighborhood is, as being unincorporated Washington County. It's a great service. I'm very supportive of it, and it is, again, discriminatory to not be allowing people that live in multifamily housing to do it. I would love if Ridwell had a competitor, and that competitor is Washington County, and we got to pick and choose which one we had for this other collection. That would be great. But what you're doing now is letting Waste Management have a monopoly, and you should not support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else, Aaron?
We do, and just for the order of time, additional hands keep going up. So we're going to try to limit this to 2 minutes. Everyone's doing a great job so far. So thank you for keeping your comments concise. And next we have Sarah.
Hi, thank you all for your time and for your service on the committee. I just want to say, I mean, this is my first time diving into this world of garbage and recycling. I'm just the average customer here in Washington County, but I really am not exaggerating when I say I was devastated when I got the email saying that Ridwell was having to suspend service here. It's been such a great thing for our household. We've seen so much less waste. They're really organized and in just a short time have moved into our community as not just a provider of this service, but also giving back to other organizations and really showing that they're a company that wants to help everybody to be, just a better better community, better together. And I haven't seen any of that from Waste Management. And I also don't trust them to have the same sort of operation standards that Ridwell has already employed. So I please ask you to consider voting no and letting Ridwell operate. It would really help us out. Thank you.
Next up, we have Matt.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for taking my call. Matt Browning, current Ridwell customer, resident, unincorporated Washington County. Just really supporting all the previous comments. I mean, frankly, it seems like everybody's on the side of Ridwell here. And being a customer, you know why. They offer a great service. It's a reasonable price. I've read the presentation that went along with the Zoom. From what I read and what's being proposed, that it's inferior service for more money. I don't understand it, you guys. Thanks for taking the comment.
Thank you.
And that is it, Ken. We've moved through the list.
Oh, great. Thank you. What's next? I don't have my agenda in front of me, Tom.
All right, next is the action item to talk about the additional recycling services, and I will give a presentation. Are you ready to go for that, Ken?
Yes, I am.
Yep. Okay. I just want to clarify a couple things for committee members before I dive into the presentation. I think it was mentioned in the public comment, and I just want to make it clear the action before you this evening is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. Your committee is advising the Board of Commissioners on what you think they should do in regards to amending the solid waste recycling administrative rules and developing rates for an alternative recycling collection program. So I don't want you all to feel the weight of having to make this decision. This is a decision that the Board of Commissioners ultimately is charged with making. So I just want you to know that and to carry that forward into this conversation and consideration. And we're happy to talk through it as we go. So I'm going to pull up the presentation and start the discussion here. I think I'm showing you all my stuff probably. And there's my timer for the. Sorry about this. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yeah, but we can see your slides on the side too. It's not in.
Okay. How's that? Better? Okay. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to start off by going over a quick timeline of this policy issue. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the survey in November and December of 2022. I'm specifically focusing on the second part of this conversation and when we're talking about the additional recycling collection program, and I'm not going to go back and rehash the exemption request process. So that process was concluded last September. And then you will recall that we had a community survey that went out that we discussed at the last meeting in November and December. And that survey concluded in December of this year, 2021. Yes, sorry. This is a typo on my calendar timeline. January 18th of 2022, staff attended a work session with the Board of County Commissioners. The board asked us in that work session to focus in on a certain policy proposal. And then we returned on January 25th, 2022 to the Board of Commissioners meeting to approve a resolution and order and some temporary rules. I'll go into a little more detail on those in the next slide. February 10th, we held the last GRAC meeting and we gave you all an update on the community survey and the input we've received to date on this issue. And then on February 22nd, we shared draft solid waste and recycling administrative rules. We shared that with your committee. And we also sent that out to an interested parties list that have over 200 community members signed up for it, and also posted it on the hot topics page of the solid waste and recycling website. So community members could see the proposed rules and make comments on them. We only received, I think, one direct response to the comments on the administrative rules from the community members. And we included that, I believe Kathy forwarded that to you this afternoon with some staff response to the specific suggestions to the administrative rules and questions. March 10th is where we are tonight. And we are asking the GRAC to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners If your GRAC will make a recommendation, we will carry that recommendation forward to an April 12th, 2022 work session where we will talk with the board about the proposal. We will share them information similar to what we'll share with you this evening and a copy of the draft rules. We'll also share with them what your committee's recommendation was. We are then scheduled to return to the Board of Commissioners on April 26th and anticipate that the board would act on a program proposal at that time. If such proposal was approved as currently proposed, it would be a July 1st, 2022 timeline for the beginning of a new additional recycling collection program. Go to the next slide. So review the board direction that I mentioned in the timeline. On January 18th, 2022 was a work session we attended, and staff sought direction from the board in that meeting on the regulatory approaches for additional recycling collection services. We've shared that recording of that meeting with you all, and we've also posted the recording of that meeting on the Hot Topics webpage for the Garbage and Recycling Division. The board directed staff in that meeting to amend the administrative rules to temporarily allow services to continue to be provided. We followed through with that action on January 25th. And in that meeting, the board also directed staff to develop new additional recycling collection service program that would be delivered by certificate holders. As mentioned, on January 25th, we returned to the board with a resolution and order 2215, and the board approved and adopted that resolution and order. And in that resolution, the board specifically directed staff to develop an expansion of curbside recycling collection services to be offered by certificate holders. So that's what we're here this evening to talk about and receive a recommendation on. So the proposal has evolved over the last month and a half as staff has worked with initial proposal from the Washington County Haulers Association to incorporate feedback and input from the community survey, input and feedback from staff, and input and feedback from conversations with your committee, the Board of Commissioners, and community members that are interested in this topic. I'm going to walk through the proposed program as would be implemented by the draft administrative rules that are in the committee's packet this evening. First is phase one of the proposal, and the phase one applies to single family homes through fourplex, so middle housing and single family households. Effective upon adoption of this, so if it was adopted on April 26th, effective upon adoption, the batteries, household batteries would be added to the curbside recycling program for all households receiving service in unincorporated Washington County. That would become part of the standard service and be added in a Ziploc bag on top of glass in the glass recycling bin. There would be no extra charge for that service to community members, and everybody would have access to it. Effective July 1st, 2022, the rules would implement an optional additional recycling collection service that would be available to all urban residential customers. Additional items included in this new optional service would be collected in a hauler provided plastic bag, and they would be contained within a separate lidded 15 to 25 gallon bin. We currently are seeing that those bins would probably be in the 18 to 20 gallon range, and the county would approve the bins as part of the service. Included in the service is plastic film, number one PET clear plastic clamshells or rigid plastic containers that are number one PET material, textiles, and compact fluorescent light bulbs. So continuing on to the phase one, there would be an additional fee added to the rate sheet, and Aaron will go over that fee proposal as a separate recommendation this evening as well. The additional fee would be separate from the regular garbage and recycling collection service. It would be, so if a community member was requesting this additional service, they would pay this additional fee. The fee is structured as to have a $2.50 base fee for participation in the program. This helps fund the account setup, the account development, ensures there's records of who's involved in the program for service delivery and service pickup. It also helps fund assets in the community in terms of containers and equipment that's purchased to service the containers. There would be a $9.25 per pickup fee for curbside collection. That would put it at $11.75 for approximately 18 to 20 gallons of service a month on a monthly fee. Community members could also order an extra pickup a month up to two, so they could pay for an additional pickup if they needed one more frequently. There's also an option in the proposal for a non-curb pickup, similar to getting garbage service picked up at the side of the garage or at the doorstep. Community members could pay additional fees to request non-curb service. And there's a distant non-curb service for driveways that are over 150 feet in length, which we anticipate will be very few customers in urban unincorporated Washington County. The service is considered an on-call service, so customer requests the pickup 2 business days in advance and no more than every other week intervals. So it's not a scheduled service. There would be a scheduled day that the service would be available, but customers would need to request a service, and if they don't request a service, they don't get charged the pickup fee. The rules also would require the haulers to participate in reuse collection drives for customers of the additional recycling collection services. So those that are signed up for the service and are paying a $2.50 monthly base fee would receive access to a reuse and collection drive. The rules require no less than haulers participate in no less than 4 events per year, and those events would be coordinated with county staff and local reuse organizations to collect goods. Some examples are soft goods like blankets and sheets or towels or things like that, as needed by community-based organizations. There's also a release valve in the rules that allow the county to adjust materials collected in the program in response to changes in market conditions or recycling processing capacity. So one of the things that is very important to recognize here, and we've talked about, is many of these materials have single markets, and that's why they're not in the mixed recycling bin, excuse me. And so if those markets do dry up or go away, or new markets emerge, or processing capacity disappears, the county needs to be able to react quickly to adjust the services in the programs. And so in the draft rules, county staff would have the ability to make those adjustments as needed without taking a rule package back to the Board of Commissioners. Phase 2 of the program would be to include the service to multifamily households, and that would be effective July 1st, 2023. And at that time, the service would be made available to multifamily households, and there would also be a requirement that may require permission or approval from homeowners associations and or property managers to ensure that the service can be provided on the properties they control. So I wanted to talk a little bit about incorporating community input. Staff did conduct a community survey, as we discussed and talked about last month. We received over 2,000 responses, and we wanted to make sure that when we worked with the Haulers Association to adjust this proposal, that we considered community input and we responded to requests from community members. We wanted to make sure this program was not built to replace, but built to the requests of our community. Some community engagement takeaways that we incorporated into the program. One of the things that was a big striking finding for us is that most community members, sorry, I'm reading my slide real quick. Most community members, the desire to participate in the program was strongly correlated with the cost of the program. So we attempted to approach the program as in a way to reduce cost in terms of the overall program. So we included it as an on-call service, an on-demand pay-as-you-go service, not a subscription service, not a time commitment service. So community members would not be locked into a certain fee, except for the base fee. There's no time period for commitments, and we were advocating for limiting cost in all aspects of the program when we were negotiating a potential program with Hauler Association. The other takeaway we had was, number one, PET plastic clamshells were tied for the most popular material category with plastic film in our survey. The initial proposal did not include those materials. We worked with recycling processors, Far West Recycling, and explored the markets that are available. And we've determined that we feel confident that we could at least launch the program with these materials included in them to ensure that we're responding to that request from the community. We also heard that reuse was important. So we tried to incorporate reuse into the program. If this was approved, this would be the first program that we're aware of that regulated solid waste collection system is incorporating reuse into its standard collection services, which is exciting opportunity for us to think about the future of this service, especially as Senate Bill 582 and the Recycling Modernization Act come online. We might have a new opportunity if new materials are added to the program, that there could be capacity for adding reuse options and opportunities to this type of service. Oops. Another big takeaway for us, I think over 65% of respondents said they did not want the service more than monthly. They did not feel they needed the service every other week or weekly. We also received many comments that they would like the service quarterly or every other month or every 6 weeks, more of an on-demand service. So we wanted to ensure that we developed an on-call option for community members as a way to control costs and to take the program as they needed it. So a lower monthly base rate was negotiated. The initial base rate suggestion was higher, and we negotiated the lower monthly base rate down to make it easier for community members to be part of the program and not take as frequent of service. And then we also heard from community members that folks living in multifamily households and settings really wanted to participate in the program. So we feel that is an important service component of this too. The system and the county does not feel ready to launch a program in multifamily households, as there's a lot of challenges to overcome and barriers in place. But we are committing, and the haulers have committed in rule, would be committed in rule to providing this service to multifamily households as of July 2023. So action items today, there's 2 action items today for your committee's recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The first one is a review of the solid waste and recycling administrative rules related to this program. And the second action item is a review of the proposed solid waste and recycling rate schedule related to this program. So I don't, if we want to take questions now, or if we want to go through the staff reports for each item, I think I'll leave that up to you, Ken. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other better.
Does anybody on the committee want to open up to questions right away, or would you prefer to wait, as I would, until after we've heard Kathy's and Aaron's presentations? Well, no comments, so we'll proceed to Kathy, you're on.
Thank you, Ken. So I'm Kathy Folsom with the Solid Waste and Recycling Division staff. Good evening. I'm here to present the proposed rule amendments to the Washington County Solid Waste and Recycling Administrative Rules. The administrative rules establish the standards for implementation of the code, including definitions, reporting, education, promotion, and residential and commercial collection service standards. As Tom noted in his presentation, on January 18th, 2022, staff attended a board work session and provided the board with considerations for additional recycling collection service. Developing this new program requires adjustments to the current service standards in the solid waste and recycling administrative rules, and also the adoption of rates for the new collection service. Proposed changes to the rules set forth the proposed service standards and would occur, as Tom noted, in 2 phases. I did have a question, Ken. Would you like me to share the rules or just go through my staff report? I can do either way.
Oh, just go through with the staff report.
Okay. And then if you have a question on a specific rule, I can share the document. So phase 1 would apply to all single family or up to 4-plex households in unincorporated Washington County. That's more than 60,000 households that could take this optional service. It adds household batteries to the standard curbside collection. They would be placed in a baggie on top of your glass bottles and jars. That would become available upon the effective date of the proposed rules, so upon adoption. The remaining program standards wouldn't take effect until July 1, 2022. The rules do create an optional collection service. It's not a subscription service. There isn't a minimum time commitment. It requires the collection of additional items in a separate covered bin with separate bags for different materials inside the bin, making sure that the lid closes. It adds items to be collected, which include compact fluorescent light bulbs, plastic film, textiles, and clear plastic #1 PET clamshells. It adds a requirement that a customer has to request the pickup at every other week or fewer, or no more than every other week intervals. And then it adds the requirement for the quarterly reuse collection drives that would be made available to the additional recycling collection service participants. And then phase 2 adds a requirement that a multifamily household program be developed by July 2023. The review process, on January 28th, the proposed rule revisions were sent to the Washington County Hauler Association for review and comment. And on February 9th, the Hauler Association submitted written comments. And subsequently, we met with representatives of the Washington County Hauler Association to discuss the comments and issues. Additionally, the proposed rules were sent to other local jurisdictions. And finally, the draft rules were posted on the committee webpage and sent via email to a list of interested parties to provide an opportunity for all interested parties to review and comment. As a result of those meetings and additional discussion, many of the issues raised in the comments have been resolved and are reflected in the draft rules. The next steps are that the draft administrative rules are scheduled for a board work session on April 12th. And therefore, staff recommends that the Washington County Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee favorably recommend to the Washington County Board of Commissioners that the proposed administrative rules be adopted.
Oh, Ken, there's 2 action items that we need to act on, the committee needs to act on. Kathy just went through the action item for administrative rules, so we could either discuss the administrative rules and vote on that, or we could ask Erin for her quick verbal staff report on the rates and then discuss both at the same time and act on them in 2 separate motions.
I'd prefer that.
You prefer that?
Yes. Does anybody else have strong feelings? Let's go. Go
Is
ahead,
that
Erin.
acceptable process, Brad? From a process standpoint? Cool, thank you. All right, Erin.
Great, thank you. So as we've discussed, we have 9 certificated haulers in unincorporated Washington County. We service 66,000 customers. Pursuant to Washington County Code 8.04.320 through 8.04.330, the Board of County Commissioners maintains the authority to set rates to services delivered by the certificated holders. The process of determining fair, just, and reasonable rates includes an annual review of costs and revenues associated with the provisions of providing garbage and recycling collection to all unincorporated Washington County. Additional or new program elements are reviewed on a standalone basis, and then once established, they are incorporated into the rate review process, which I will cover in more detail later. On January 18th, staff attended the board work session, as Tom mentioned, for considerations of adding additional recycling collection services in order to ensure community members have access to recycling collections for the additional items not currently covered in our curbside collection program. And staff received direction to develop a new additional recycling collection program. So I'm going to talk about the rate considerations. As we've discussed, this is a multi-phase program. It will roll out with phase 1 to the single family and 4-plex customers. It will include household batteries for all residents in unincorporated Washington County in single family households and 4-plexes, with the optional collection service taking place July 1st. Phase 2 is set to implement of summer of 2023. Expanding the current curbside recycling program to include batteries should not have a significant impact on collection rates, and we will absorb that into our regular rate review process. The actual cost will be determined when we review our 2022 rate review cycle. The new optional on-call collection service for the additional recycling collection program will have a separate cost component. Staff intends to review the cost associated with this program independently, as it's an optional service during the rate review process. Rates for this particular program would also be reviewed and adjusted independently. To develop the initial proposed rate for this service, we engaged the Washington County Haulers Association and our contracted CPA firm, Marina & Co. And we modeled a rate using evaluating current known cost and extrapolated out what it would look like to stand up a new service, including labor, benefits, new processing fees, and any additional equipment or operational needs needed. We also looked at return on revenue, unexpected cost, and built-in franchise fees into this system. So I'm going to move forward with the proposed rates to stand up this service. The proposed structure is designed to be on call. As Tom mentioned, there is no minimum subscription time. So you could stand up service and it could be canceled within several months if you decided it wasn't a right fit. With a low base fee of $2.50, you're billed that on a monthly basis, and then you're billed per pickup. So we have a curbside collection of that bin within 5 feet of the curb for $9.25 per pickup. If you go non-curbside, so garage side or porch, and your driveway is less than 150 feet, you'd be at $11.70 per pickup. And then we have the distance fee of anything over 150 feet for $13.02. The base fee is designed to cover fixed costs such as equipment, customer service, account setup, maintenance, and the program oversight. And the additional fee is to cover the operational costs such as labor and processing costs for the program. The fee.
Aaron, can I interrupt your train of thought real quick? We have commenters making comments in the Q&A. Please refrain from that. This is not the open public comment process, and your comments will be dismissed if they are made in the public Q&A section. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So the fee scheduled is to provide community members with the opportunity to receive the service either curbside or non-curbside. And this was determined through community feedback, as Tom elicited during the surveys and listening sessions that we held. And namely, having the ability to take service monthly or even less frequently was incorporated into the design of this rate structure. In the staff report, we have a table of our current rates. And with that, I'll move forward with the staff recommendation. The staff recommends that the Washington County Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee favorably recommend the Washington County Board of Commissioners that the proposed rates as outlined in this staff report be approved and become effective July 1st of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. So prior to discussion, I'm going to put a motion on the table just to provide a basis for discussion that we, the GRAC committee, recommend to the County Board of Commissioners adoption of both of the proposed changes as presented.
You want this to be one vote for both of these, Ken?
I view them as a package deal, but okay, we could do them separately if you wanted. I don't think it makes any difference.
I'd like to hear what everybody else says. I would like it to be separate.
Okay, I'll move them into separate items. I'll move first that we do the Kathy's presentation and recommend to the board that they approve that or accept that or whatever.
That would be the administrative rules, right, Ken?
The administrative rules section, correct.
Okay.
So do we have a second?
I'll second it since that's what we want to split them up. So.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Any discussion? To the administrative rules change. Go ahead, Sandra.
So are we taking questions now or just discussion?
What kind of questions?
I have several questions regarding these rates, and I also have some discussion. So I don't know where.
Yeah, we can answer questions.
mean,
Let's
You,
focus
you
on
have
the
the,
rules.
you have the floor, you have the floor, go for it.
Let's go with the first thing. This receptacle size, why is there a discrepancy? Is it 15? Is it 25? Do you guys not know yet?
So it's a range because the specific receptacle has not been chosen yet. So we've included 15 to 25 gallons as the range. There is a clause in that section that the county has to approve the container and the container's color. The current container under consideration is a 18-gallon container from Reurig with a lid that adds 2 gallons of capacity under the lidded. So it'd be around 18 to 20 gallons of capacity.
And is that a roll cart or a box or?
It's like the glass bin, but it's a little bit bigger. So it's a Kirby, I think we call them. Looks similar to the glass bin.
Okay. So these collection bags that go in this box or Kirby, whatever, I see that they're going to be plastic. Are they going to be recyclable, reusable?
Yeah. So we worked on this. We evaluated this pretty closely. We did some research on some LCAs and life cycle analyses and discussed reusable bags because we wanted to incorporate reuse into the program in any way we could. Our research is showing that using cotton or reusable cotton bags, which would be a durable bag that could be replaced a single-use plastic bag, would take about 5,000 to 6,000 uses to offset the greenhouse gas emissions, the life cycle analysis for a single-use recycled content plastic bag. So I think at twice a week, so 52 pickups per year, it would take 500 years or something to really pay off in terms of a life cycle analysis. So we wanted to be really careful about including a bag that was for the right reasons, and plastic bags would be included in the film recycling and sent off with the other film recycling to the film recycler. If that, does that answer your question, Sandra?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And styrofoam, why is it not included? I'll just ask that right out.
Yeah, styrofoam is a challenging material. There's logistical challenges with styrofoam in terms of collection because of the bulk density of it. So it's a really expensive material. We were looking at potential costs for collecting styrofoam that were up in the $9, $10, $11 a bag range on top of this current fee. We also have some questions and concerns that aren't able to be answered regarding the sustainability and the whether or not it's environmentally beneficial to collect styrofoam and send it to a chemical recycling facility to be recycled into fuel or other processes. So there's some unanswered questions in terms of the environmental benefit of that program. There's a report that was actually released by Gaia, which is an organization that is an environmental watchdog organization that was questioning the efficacy of some of these chemical recycling programs. So we had a lot of unanswered questions and we didn't feel confident that it was the right choice at this time environmentally.
And can you define the fourplex definition? I mean, if it's a condo complex that has 8 units, 2 buildings of 4, does that count? Or are you talking about just one single condo complex that only have 4 units, a row house complex that's 4 units?
My understanding
kind
is
of vague on that.
4 connected units.
Okay, so you can have a condo complex of 100 units as long as they're like blocks of 4.
Yep.
And do they have to have their own garbage service individual?
So technically the program, you would not be required to be a subscriber of standard curbside recycling service to take this service. So for example, you didn't need garbage service, you could take this service on its own. In the example you're describing, it sounds like there would certainly be a property manager and HOA involved. So there'd be some assurances to make sure that that's an acceptable activity on the property for the person in control of the property, but I don't think there's anything limiting that. And there would be nothing limiting those households from receiving individual garbage service, recycling yard debris and food scraps, or recycling yard debris and garbage as well.
Okay, Tom, I live in a condo complex or condo whatever, and we have 63, I think 63 buildings, all duplexes. So would they then be expected to come by each individual unit in the place, or would we, as we do now, go to one of two centralized garbage collection facilities and put our extra recycling in there? Because we already have a whole bunch of recycling bins that we're putting stuff in, both for glass and for normal stuff, and garbage. We have two huge bins for garbage. But we have no service. We don't have the trucks driving down our streets now or anything from anybody, either Ridwell or anybody else. I haven't seen a Ridwell truck. So, and I'm in the city of Hillsborough. I'm not in the county, so this won't apply to me anyway.
So the way the rules are written, Ken, says for residential means single family dwellings and dwellings having 4 or less units. And the definition,
we would meet that requirement.
The definition for multifamily means dwellings of 5 or more units. In your example, there's a shared service situation, so that adds a complexity to the equation. But I think per definition, there's a potential possibility that those individual units, if they're in duplexes, would be eligible for a service.
As you might have guessed, I'm on the HOA board as well. And we have not been asked by any of the other frequent visitors like Amazon and FedEx and UPS, if they can drive their trucks down our roads or visit every house in the facility. If a person has a mailbox, which is typically how their stuff is being routed, then we see all these trucks coming. So we often have 4 and 5. Amazon is the worst. Amazon trucks in our facility at the same time as they all come zooming in, watching out for each other. And not a terribly friendly or nice way to do it. So go ahead, Sandra. You're still on. I just butted in.
Oh, that's all right. I have more to say, but I'd like to have others ask their questions first.
Any other questions? Aaron, are people? I don't see anybody waving. I don't see the whole rest of the audience.
And Ashvin too. So,
Peter, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just got a few more sort of operational questions as I was reading through the rules, so bear with me. I know it's a tough thing for everybody to get their hands around and try to make sense of all this stuff. But just to help me understand, on page 20 in NA8C, discussion of household batteries, the list seemed to be a little bit odd to me. I was wondering how that list got developed of the types of batteries that were being collected. Rechargeable alkalins, for instance, haven't really been a viable market item for maybe 15 or 20 years. And I noticed the conspicuous absence of lithium ion, which is a very problematic battery, as most of us know, right, Vinod? So just wondering what the rationale or how this was developed, and whether these are examples or if this is the list and other batteries that don't meet those names or labels would not be collected.
And I just wanted to say that if you can see it, I've shared the screen so that if you're going to talk about actual rules, everyone can see them. Can you, if it's big enough for y'all to see?
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, and even the first line says alkaline, 6 volt to 9 volt. Does that exclude the 1.5 common volt alkalins? I mean, it just seemed a little unclear. And I know that it's tough when you have rules. You need to be as precise as you can be. And so I would hate for this to exclude things that are against the rules, but are commonly going to be wanted to be recycled by folks. So just wondering how that was developed.
It's interesting, Peter. I read it completely differently. So, and you're right, it isn't clear, but I read alkaline as any alkaline battery, any size, any type, and then 6 to 9 volt batteries, which are different size, different shapes and what have you, then rechargeable and that whole list of things. So I think that was something that could be clarified or broken out in greater detail if necessary.
I will say that we started out very high level, and then we got a lot of comments about adding more specific detail. So the way Ken read it is the way it was intended. It wasn't meant to exclude the little alkaline batteries, but it's certainly something we can take into consideration and maybe tighten it up, double check.
Well, I think what would help is to not mix chemistries with electrical capacities. And so if you were clear on the chemistries that you were taking, and then maybe the size, like the physical size, or maybe any battery up to, if they're depending on your vendor, if they take, 9 volts or 12 volts or whatever it is, to, leave that as a separate item that would be a limiting item on that general category by chemistry. I think that would be a helpful way to look at it.
I'd propose that we mandate that all batteries up to, but not including lead acid batteries that are used on, motorcycles, lawnmowers, cars, and everything else. I think the lead acid technology needs a separate category. If we're going to handle it, we need to handle it differently.
Yeah, lead acid is excluded on there because they're challenging. And we need to make sure if we add it on there that the processor and the recycler can handle it. So Pete, we would appreciate if you had some feedback that you can share with us.
Sure.
In writing after this, help us kind of thread that. I think that would be really important for us to help perfect it.
Yeah, sure, no problem. And then the related question to that is, was there discussion with the haulers on who the vendor is? It's going to be the recipient, because there would be some limitations depending on where they were sending them. And then more importantly, was there any discussion about the environmental performance records of various recyclers, which ranges from very poor to pretty good, with EPA's ECHO report on actual facilities? So I'm wondering if that kind of analysis, the thought process went into this.
So some considerations on that. I think one of the important things to remember too, one of the primary drivers for batteries outside of the separate or collected separately is to keep them out of the mixed recycling, out of the garbage containers, to protect workers at MRFs and protect garbage truck drivers and prevent fires in garbage trucks. Now, there's also the added benefit of being able to collect them for recycling. We would be partnering with Far West Recycling for haulers that do not want to consolidate at their own yards. Some haulers are planning to consolidate at their own yards, and then we understand it would be transferred to URT, which is an Oregon e-cyclers recycler in Clackamas County. And I understand they have some third-party certifications that ensure that there's handled appropriately, and we are confident that if they're partners with the Oregon e-cycles program, that gives us some confidence that they're managing them responsibly as well.
Okay, thanks for sharing that thought process on that.
I mean, they're e-steward certified, so they have pretty strict standards.
Yeah, good. Okay, so that's my discussion on batteries. I had a couple other comments as well. I'm not sure if it merits spending time on some of these small details. So let me just check and see if there's anything else here that I have.
Another thing real quick, sorry, Pete, I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought. Before we, I think we really appreciate the small details because they are important.
Right.
And we also, as we go through these processes and make rules, there is an opportunity for us to make small adjustments, particularly to a section like reordering or naming the batteries in a more clear way between this committee's action and the Board of Commissioners. So the recommendation is a recommendation of the concept and of the rules in how what they would include in the program. And we still feel that there's an opportunity for us to make some of those fine tooth tweaks between now and when the board would adopt them. So we can work with your committee and make sure that everyone's on the same page as those things move through.
And I want to add, Tom, that my experience with the GRAC and prior to that committee was that the county is actually fairly nimble in being able to change a rule or to insert new language into something. And so when we encounter, as we invariably will, something we look at and go, what were they thinking? Or why on earth did they do this? And it would be a lot easier if we did it this way. We're not locked in with trying to convince 50 senators from 50 other states to make a change or something. We have pretty close access and pretty good communication with the county.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. And happy to go through all of these nuances and details. And I think it's important conversation, Pete. So please carry on. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no problem. And the one item I did find here that I made a note on was on page 23, NB7 Oh, I'm not sure what that letter is. So it's the issue regarding the compact fluorescent lamps and how they're handled in the collection. And it says that they're going to be put into a 1 gallon zippered lock bag, as I understood it. Yeah. So was there a discussion about breakage prevention? Is that, I mean, I have no idea, you know, what this looks like for general, like Ridwell type curb or at door kinds of collections. I know in other settings like retail, breakage is a big problem. And so I'm just wondering if there were considerations or discussion about how breakage would be ameliorated, whether or not the idea of the 1 gallon bag either deflated or inflated to be a balloon or something, just what the thought process was for why that was chosen.
So the bag is limited to 1 gallon to keep it from getting too big. So smaller than 5 gallons. We don't 5 gallons of CFLs. And then the zip sealed bag is also intended to contain any breakage, if there is breakage in the bag, and when it's collected and transported to the processing site. So beyond that, there has not been any further discussion about breakage.
Okay. All right, if I have other items, I'll just get you offline with them so we don't have to spend more time in the committee here.
Thank you, Pete.
So I'm set. I will de-raise my hand.
So did anybody else have their hand raised? I can't see raised hands.
Yeah, Ashman's got his hand raised.
I did. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm using an external mic. So I also had just a few questions. And I guess for context on my background, I'm a Ridwell customer. And so, you know, I share a lot of I think what the people said before kind of resonate with me, and they're, you know, they were upset about Ridwell being removed. But I do think, like, you know, I've started to come around to this proposal for a couple of things, but when I think back to one of the reasons why we went with the haulers was that we were going to have some sort of like synergy, you know, with already having the haulers. But I don't remember where it was on here, but it doesn't require that the haulers pick up, say, these extra recyclables on the same day that you have another service. Is there a reason why we, like, I mean, because glass comes with recycling, why not we wouldn't also do the additional materials?
Yeah, so there's a couple considerations. Sorry, Kathy, I saw you on mute too. Do you want to do it? Take it? No. Okay. Sorry. Some collectors are, so we tend to try to stay out of operational decision making on behalf of the haulers in our rulemaking and how we manage the collection system. We leave kind of the operational efficiency determinations to the haulers. So it would be this was part of that discussion, in that as a program is starting in particular, and the routes are being built, there's a concern about the efficiency of having a service area with, say, 50 or 75 or 100 customers on it that are kind of smattered around the area, and having to go out and grab those on every day. Some garbage companies are running separate glass trucks with the capacity and the ability to amend those that equipment to put different bays or chambers on those glass trucks, so they could collect this material on a glass route. Some companies have glass trucks that are they collect glass in a separate bay in the mixed recycling truck, or they collect glass combined with another truck, so they wouldn't have the capacity to add more bins or chambers to those vehicles. And we don't want to require that they do that route on the same day as that service if they can't use that service vehicle to do that collection service. So we're trying to open it up to the ability for them to run maybe just on a Monday or a Tuesday if they have 50 or 100 customers in their service areas, and that if that has to be a separate vehicle, it doesn't have to be the same big trucks going out and servicing it, if that makes sense. It just allows more operational flexibility. So we understand some companies do plan to add it to a glass route. Some companies plan to collect it in a separate type of vehicle, and that we've opened it up to allow them to do that, whatever is most efficient to their business model.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just, I personally would like to put all my stuff out the same day, and would have enjoyed that synergy if we're going to be using the certificate system. And I guess kind of like the follow-up to that is also, like, you know, people talk about the cost of Ridwell versus this. And personally, I only use Ridwell once a month, and when you compare the cost of that, it comes out to be about the same. So I think I kind of also appreciate the fact that for a lot of people, they want to use it less than once a month. they actually benefit quite a bit. It's really just the people who want to use it every, twice a week that are really being hit with this. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in that, which I enjoy. But like if you, the way Ridwell started was that they would get enough people in a neighborhood and then they would pilot it and kind of expand from that, which also helps reduce the cost. And if we don't do that, when we do a rate setting system and we don't have that efficiency, and like you're saying, we're allowing them to not necessarily run that efficiency, then aren't we just going to end up paying that cost down the road when we do a rate review that says, well, they can't do what they said we could do because we didn't get enough people or so that's what I'm concerned about is, and even when we talk about the batteries being no cost now, right? It's no cost now, but then it becomes a rate review later. So it's kind of, I'm worried that if we don't have some sort of pilot program or some sort of restrictions that require some sort of synergy, we're going to just end up stuck with an even more expensive system that doesn't make sense down the road.
Okay.
I was just going to say that, the county system is built on, if there's a rate, it's offered to all light customers. And it's just, the fact of the county is we have a lot of customers, and some of them may be higher cost and some of them may be lower cost. We hope over time it will build up into more efficient routes just from the sheer number of customers. But if we were to do a pilot, then you would be basically having to pick and choose. And most of our programs, when we roll them out, it's rolled out to the entire customer base. We did limit it to urban because we felt that at this time, rural would be really, even more high cost just because of the sheer distance between individual customers. So that's one of the ways we tried to kind of limit that, potential of having one or two a neighborhood instead of, 100 all houses. But that's kind of the trade-off between limiting it to a few or having it available to all. And we thought that based on the survey and other channels that there was interest. There wasn't one specific area that had interest. It was broadly distributed throughout the county. So
I think part of it too, the estimates for the cost are pretty conservative in terms of signups, and number of pickups is really based on number of pickups, and it's estimating that each household is going to do like 4 to 6 a year. And so some customers are going to be more frequent on pickup and some are going to be less frequent. And then there's going to be time between stops and more route density. So it is a really challenging estimate. And as the program rolls out, we'll start to see real costs, and that will help us create the more succinct rate going forward. The other part of this is that we discovered through this is staff feel strongly that this system of this program should pay for itself, but our system is really set and designed on a system-wide rate setting process. So our collection system is a $35 million system in terms of gross revenues, and this program is going to cost less than $500,000 or around $500,000. So on the scale of things, it's a pretty small program in relation to the overall revenue that the system generates. So if year one happens and there's still program signups and there's still an on-ramping period and we're not where we wanted to be, the county will have the opportunity to review their financials and make a decision on whether or not we want to double the rate because it needs to double to pay for itself, or give it more time to mature and for customers to sign up. So this is one of the fundamental things that I think the board was really interested in too, is the service equity in terms of availability and what customers have the service available to them and how those customers have the opportunity to participate or not. So it is a really good question, Ashman, and it's another one we're struggling with in terms of the low income rate project that we're working on and trying to identify what does year one look like or year two. Can we estimate the ramp up cost time if we need to offset costs up front? How do we evaluate the impact of that? So it's a really good question. So thank you.
Thanks for the answer. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Going to show how much I don't know about recycling here, but on page 23, you limit it to number 2 and number 4 for plastic film. And Ridwell currently just takes all plastic film. And I guess I'm not sure, like maybe that's just being, landfilled or it's not efficient, or if it's LCS. So I'm just kind of curious why number 2, number 4, and if you think we're actually gonna be able to get that level of cleanliness that is not gonna just end up the entire thing in the landfill anyway.
Vinod off mute, and he is the
Yeah, I'll just
expert on it.
because that's what the market wants. They want the 2 and 4 stretchy film. So that's your water bottle overwrap, your produce bags, your grocery bags. The little kind of the crinkly little brown ones are number 2s, and the more stretchy ones like produce bags are 4. And so that's what the end market wants. They don't want.
And is there other film out there, Vinod? Like what?
There's other film that they don't want salad bags. So if you put a salad bag, that's like at number 7. Or some of the freezer bags have a liner in them. And it's not. It doesn't play well in their system. So that's what the end market wants, is just the 2s and 4s.
Is that just because of who was chosen to collect this plastic, and that there's other people who will collect?
Like Tom mentioned, there's very limited markets for some of these materials, and so one of the largest, most established is that's what they want in their mix.
So how do you guys separate out 2 and 4 from the stream of stuff that as you're murphing something?
Well, they're not supposed to be in the program, so we don't anymore. A long time ago we had dabbled in what's called Murph film markets, but they weren't very stable, and so it's a contaminant, and when it comes out of the Murph, it's very dirty as compared to a retail collection or a sort of segregated program. So we just throw it away. We have to cut it out of our screens. So when we cut it out of our screens, it's got string in it and tape and all kinds of things, and so it's an efficiency killer for us. That just ends up landfilled. So there's no wishful recycling if you put it in your bin.
One of the things that we've been talking about with our team and preparing for if this does get approved is how do we educate to the administrative rules? The administrative rules are not educational materials. We don't just drop admin rules and hope everybody understands the program. So there's gonna be a lot of work if this is approved, kind of defining those materials in consumer terms. Vinod talked about stretchy plastics, so kind of identifying and describing the types of plastic films that would be accepted in the program is going to be a big effort too. And the clamshell or the rigid plastics, clamshells might even be the wrong term, because I think it's technically a number 1 PET rigid thermoform that's clear. So that's a pretty specific material. And so trying to describe that material and educate to that is going to be something that we're going to have to work on as well.
Okay, any other people have discussion, or Sandra, did you have more things now? You're muted still.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah, well, I don't know about the rest of the committee, but I don't like this phase 1 and phase 2 thing. I don't like the fact that multifamily has to wait over a year to be included in this. If I remember way back when the haulers had this presentation, one of their main arguments was that service was not being offered to all residents. And this is a huge chunk of people that's being left out for a year or more. I think we can do better. I would rather we wait and implement this when we have a plan for as many residents as possible and include as many multifamily as possible. We should be meeting the needs of all the residents, not just the single family 4-plex, whatever. I mean, the row house of 5 next to the row house of 4 can't participate. It just doesn't seem right. So that's my opinion on that. And that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
Do we know why? I mean, is there a reason stated why it's being held off for a year?
It's really about the logistics of providing the service in multifamily settings and kind of what Ken described as the challenges in terms of serving the customer in a multifamily account and where the service point is. So is the doorway accessing to the outside, the public? Does the doorway have to be accessed through locked doors or internal hallways? There's some challenges in multifamily complexes with egress and fire code. So bins sitting in front of doors on stairways and in hallways on internal facing buildings are against fire code. So there has to be some work done with property managers and understanding if there can be some centralized collection points. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I think we're really concerned about a lot of those unanswered questions and need time to work through some of those challenges in order to do it right.
Do you think delaying the main service would help speed that up, or is?
I don't see it as a challenge of the county. I mean, that's the challenge of the apartment complex or the condo or the HOA. I mean, who cares what the HOA has to say? I mean, if they don't
control the property,
if they don't like it and the HOA bans it for their complex, then they don't get service. That's plain and simple. And if the people don't like it, they will protest. I mean, there's a HOA next to where I live, and people are complaining constantly and getting things changed. And if there's fire hazards and that's the way it is, they just can't have the service. And you just have to tell them that. I mean, there's some things you can't change, but there's a lot of people that can have this service that just happen to live in multifamily or what you describe as more than 4 units that really should be included in this right now.
But I think that this is a question we could challenge or we could question, because while our condominium association is 62 units of duplexes, at the same time, none of us have individual service with Pride. Pride comes and takes the big things out of their storage area. And so it'd be a whole different system to set up something on individual accounts for individual homeowners to then we have to figure out where we're going to put it. Are they going to come to our front porches or what's going to happen? That's a problem for us, the HOA, to address. But I think we could facilitate it if the county had a program, if the haulers by mandate had a program that was easy to incorporate and work rather than one that was inconvenient and difficult.
That is certainly something, if your committee wants to make a recommendation for an amendment to the rules, that you could make to send forward to the Board of Commissioners as well.
I'm probably the only one in my whole community who even knows it happens. Okay. Who's next?
If I could respond, just one little thing.
Sure.
If it could, the committee could also consider the July 1, 2023 date and think through whether you want to have that commitment moved up some, because it's well over a year, rather than delay the whole program for most likely a very considerable length of time in order to come up with a plan to serve those multifamily customers that can take it. Because I know that it's not so much the HOA, it's property managers, and especially in large multifamily complexes. So there's going to be a certain amount of work around that, but we recognize that multifamily is very underserved in a lot of cases, and often we'll get to it later. That's part of the reason why we put the commitment in the rules. But the date itself is not necessarily hard and fast.
Do we have any guidance from the county commissioners on this, or are they essentially unaware of the problem until we point it out to them in a presentation?
Commissioners are very very keen on multifamily community members and households, and that was a big part of their discussion, and it was brought up multiple times at the work session on the 18th. So it is something that they're interested in figuring out. How do we serve multifamily community members, for sure.
Isn't it true also, I guess, Tom, Kathy, that even recycling in multi-unit housing is very difficult, and there are a lot of complexes that do not have recycling because they don't have room, and the managers refuse to set it up because of that fact?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and we've done some work regionally doing waste composition studies in terms of recycling in multifamily versus residential settings. The contamination rate in multifamily is in the 5% range, and single family it's about 9%. So it's a shared service situation. It's challenging. A lot of infrastructure and buildings like enclosures are too small for the current setup of recycling systems, where we have multiple bins for recycling and glass and garbage. So it's a really challenging situation. We are working on multifamily recycling in standard services with the regional service standards we adopted last year. So we're setting up minimum service levels for households so they're not underserved, or requiring that recycling be offered to community members at a reasonable volume. And we're requiring that those containers be color coded by a time certain, so that it's a little bit more clear to community members. So those are some efforts underway on the standard recycling programs, and it is a different type of service, and it's a more challenging service, but it doesn't mean it's needs, we're trying to do as much as we can to correct some of those disparities. I think this is an important discussion and important consideration as well.
So Kathy, I like your idea of, maybe not putting it out a whole year, maybe it's 6 months, so that there's an opportunity to examine it more closely or something. A year is a long time. But I also know that there are huge challenges that we would be facing in multi-unit housing.
What if we came back to the committee with an update in a set period of time with sort of the progress that we've, just, and get your input? 6 months when this program is not even starting until July would be a challenge. So I'm just wondering if it's more of you need to see the progress and the work that we're doing as we drive toward more, collection service being made available to.
And I was really saying more like January of 2023 is really what I should have said.
However, if I were in the position of many of the haulers, even a July 1st implementation date looks like tomorrow. It just seems like a big hill to climb awfully quickly, and going out and sourcing containers and getting them distributed and all the other steps that have to be done before you can really start implementing the program. It doesn't happen, and it doesn't drop out of the sky. Every step along the way requires somebody do something to make it happen. And the plastic containers, once they decide who they are, then you got to order them and wait for them to come and what have you. It just, the whole process is every step of it takes time. And I underestimate time badly, which is why I was late to the meeting today. I tried to pack, 5 gallons worth of activities into a 3-gallon container, and it just happens. So.
Bernard, I saw your hand go up.
I was just going to echo. I'm going to miss Ken because I think of something and he comes out of his mouth. So that, it's a lot of moving pieces that we've discussed here. That just the multifamily getting it up to speed now is a big task. So then now you're adding another program in there. There's a lot of moving pieces, and I wouldn't want to see it fail or get rushed into something and have tons of obstacles. Because you're rushing it, but I get that it sounds a year, sounds a long ways away, but what I keep learning is time goes really fast, and all of a sudden things are off. So I think a check-in is important. This is what it looks like today, and this is if you can get it off the ground earlier, then I think people will. But also you don't want to make it impossible. But I do think you should a check-in with hey, here's where our progress is, and here's where we're going, and this is what we think we can do this timeline.
I agree. I think that would be an excellent approach. So if you felt that you really wanted to know where we were January of 23, it would be appropriate to ask, how much progress are we 6 months from being able to get containers at all? Are these coming from a country we no longer talk to, or something like that? I mean, look over your shoulder and think about the poor people who had built their business around a supply of raw materials from Russia. They are struggling this week to try and figure out what they're going to do to stay in business. So it's just the way the world is. But we have to be sympathetic to our haulers as well. Okay. What was next on the agenda? Oh,
Well,
we
we
have to
haven't-
vote
we
on
haven't
this. I have a
voted
motion
on it.
out here. So I think it's time to call the question then. Do you want to read what we're voting on, Kathy, if you could?
So you're voting to favorably recommend to the Washington County Board of Commissioners that they adopt the proposed Washington County Solid Waste and Recycling Administrative Rules.
And with Pete's battery clarification.
There may be, yeah, there may be from any one of you some minor changes that don't change content, but just read better or use a better set of terms, that kind of thing.
So all those in favor, or if anybody is in opposition, how do you want to do this? All those in favor, wave your hand and see if we can kind of count that way.
So I got Ken, Vinod, Sue, and Pete, and Ashvin. Okay. And Myra, did you have your hand up or? Oh, Myra's got her hand up too. I'm sorry. The blur hides the hand. Thank you.
Okay.
So Ken, you got some opposition though too, right? Got to make
Oh,
note of that.
Okay.
6-1, right?
How many no's? Huh? Oh, okay.
I don't like this days thing. I'd rather we postpone this and include everyone, but if that's not the way everybody else votes, then it's
Okay.
my opinion, so.
Thank you. You're entitled to your opinion, Sandra. Okay, the second one, Aaron, do we want to have a motion, Ken, maybe on the rates piece, and then we
Yes.
could have discussion too.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we again adopt, that we pass this forward to the board with our blessing. And do you want to help me with the wording here?
Aaron, do you want to read the recommendation?
Yes, staff is recommending that the Washington County Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee favorably recommend to the Board of Commissioners the proposed rates as outlined in the staff report, and that they become effective July 1st of 2022.
Okay. So
Ken had a
that's it.
motion. We need a second if we,
Oh, that's right.
okay, Sue seconds.
Okay. So all those in favor,
Do
wave
we
your
have
hand.
any
in
more
front of-
discussion
any
real
more?
quick? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have to have discussion. Anybody that want to discuss the rates? Go ahead.
Me, of course. I was wondering what the profit margin is on this, if there is any.
10% is the ROR that's built into the rate model as the regular rates.
Just as the, it's like the
Yeah.
regular. And this is completely separate. The profit or loss that happens with this is completely separate from the regular.
That's how this proposal is designed, and we are indicated that we will be collecting detailed cost report data separate from the regular service data. And so next year, when rate review comes in 2023, we will see costs from this program separate. And then the board and the committee can continue deliberation on how those rates are remaining separate or not in the rate structure.
And as one of our ongoing projects, we're working on the same thing on drop boxes and residential pickup, because they have not been tracking together in terms of profit margin. And so, yes, we make the effort to have each individual area of activity have the same 10% return on revenue.
Especially since this is an optional thing, and that those of us who choose not to have this service should not have to cover any losses. Or
correct, absolutely.
It should be self-sufficient. Okay. I'm kind of curious about this distance fee. How you guys came up with the idea of $2 more for 150 feet or $4 more for more than that. It just seems kind of excessive on that, but
so currently the solid waste and recycling rate sheet includes distance charge as an optional service for community members for standard collection services. So if you looked at the additional fees section on the rate sheet, someone could pay extra to have their cart collected from the side of their garage or wherever in their house. And that structure that rate is structured as 0 to 150 feet and 150 feet plus. And so there's 2 distance fee zones. And we worked with the collectors to understand how many trips are made every month up and down the driveway to collect those materials based on the frequency of containers. So every other week collection for recycling, every other week for yard debris, weekly garbage, every other week glass. And it's an average of 6 trips per month up and down the distance service. And so we took that fee and divided it by 6 in each of those zone categories and arrived at those 2 different sets. So $22.45 extra for 5 to 150 feet. And I think it's $3.74 for the more than 150 feet distance.
So this is all urban, is it not?
Right now it's all urban. Yep.
And so 150 feet, you've got to have a pretty big McMansion on a pretty big lot before you
Pretty big
get
driveway.
yeah,
I don't think there's many 150-foot driveways in urban unincorporated, but
That's
there's
what I
some
was
flag
thinking.
lots. There's flag lots with long driveways. So
And are flag lots expected to bring it all the way out to the street? That's what they do most of the time. So
yeah, so the
okay.
definition of curbside is within 5 feet of the curb or the road or the curb.
road. Okay.
Yeah. And
Thank
so
you.
they could pay the distance fee to have the collectors go up and get it from the house.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So all of those in favor of the motion as presented, I think wave your hands in front of the camera so Tom can count them.
Or maybe do the raise your hand feature maybe so we can count them even better.
Okay, I can raise a hand.
Six in favor. Okay. And then
Opposed?
lower your hands.
Oh, lower my hand. You're right. And opposed? Motion carries with no opposition that I see.
Sandra, did you abstain or?
No, she voted.
Okay. So that one was unanimous, 7-0.
Apparently.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. That's the conclusion of the action item. Now we do have another item of business on the agenda for this evening. It is already 7:45, so I will leave it up to your committee whether you want to push it off till the next meeting, or if you want to tackle that issue this evening.
This is the discussion of the details of how the rate analysis goes and everything.
Yes, it's a rate review primer.
Rate review primer. I would propose either a separate meeting devoted exclusively to that, or ahead of the presentation of the rate analysis next time.
Pete, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it seems like something that's gonna be pretty important detail wise, and it's getting fairly late in the evening. So if we could find either another meeting or put it ahead to another meeting, that would be my preference.
Kathy, do you have a solution?
You're
So
muted
I
there.
looked, I know. So I looked at our calendar that we talked about, and our actual discussion of this year's rate review occurs May 19th. So we have the April 14th meeting, and there are currently no action items on that meeting. So that might be the best solution, is to make it the
So yeah, let's build the
first
April.
item on that agenda so that we have plenty of time for questions. And, we had another presentation, but I think that would be your best solution. And then we could still have further dialogue between then and the actual rate review meeting too. But let's get the good overview discussion out there.
I think that's an excellent approach. So the April 14th meeting would be primarily devoted to that, along with any other last minute updates that we had to deal with.
Sounds good. If that's what you all agree to, yeah. Okay. All right, so that's the end of our action items. We do have another public comment period on the agenda, and we can move into that if you're ready for that, Ken.
I am ready for that, yes.
Okay. So if you would like to make comment on the second public comment period, we have 5 minutes per individual.
Oh, 5 minutes?
That's
Wait a
what
minute, how many people do we have?
Right now, there's 2 hands up, so.
Brad, you're nodding yes. Is 5 minutes a statutory requirement, or is this
I think
something
it's
that our,
part of our bylaws and it's what the Board of Commissioners does too.
okay, 5 minutes it is.
Okay, let me queue up a timer really quickly so we
Yes,
can
please.
stay on track. And I actually have that ready. I'm going to, it looks like Lauren had her hand up first, so I am going to give her permission to speak. Go ahead, Lauren.
You'll have to unmute. There you go.
Yep, I'm unmuted. Thanks. I spoke before. I just like to say I'm really disappointed that you guys passed the proposal. I think just not granting Ridwell the permit and then moving on with, I think they can, absolutely both occupy the same space. And I honestly really would hate to see the county waste money defending a lawsuit that Seattle couldn't win. I don't think Washington County will win. So anyway, I just want to say I'm disappointed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Next, we have Jacob. Go ahead, Jacob.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everybody, for your time tonight. Just 2 items. One was on the additional recycling collection service. There was a presentation. And one thing I wanted to mention was that in phase 1, there's a notation that says the county may adjust materials collected in the program in response to changes in recycling capacity or availability. There's no mention of whether the county would need to represent what they're removing to the GRAC. So if the county decides, hey, I'm going to take out batteries, they don't have to go through GRAC. They don't have to talk to anybody. They can just make that decision arbitrarily and without consulting with GRAC. And I think that's maybe an oversight. I'm not saying y'all rushed it or forgot it, but allowing someone at the county level who is not part of GRAC to make decisions that everyone voted in for batteries and CFL and like plastics, but then they can just decide to take it out if they hear from a hauler that it's not worth the time or money. So something maybe if you're going to revise rules for Peter's battery revision, by the way, good job on that one. I would say maybe write it in that if a hauler wants to not take something anymore and goes to the county has to present that change request to GRAC and not just make the change on their own without consulting. Secondly, real quick on the presentation, I know we haven't talked about it for the rate review. I read it. Slide 3 mentions community members as a stakeholder, but slide 4, I don't see a consultant taking feedback from community members on the rates. Slide 4 has a lot of dates, and so I know that we're going to talk about this on April, but I would like to see the community members, regular people who live in Aloha, unincorporated Washington County. I'd like to see their feedback somewhere in there of what we think the rate should be and how appropriate or increases and such. I think you mention it, and then it's almost like you skipped us over and you forgot about us. And we're still here, and the rates we pay, 3%, goes back to the county, and I think our opinion is valuable.
I'm going to comment because my understanding of what we're getting first is a presentation of how the rate is arrived at. And that's a fairly mechanical process. It is not an opinion. And so what numbers do we put into the machine? How do we crunch the numbers, and how do we come up with something at the end? And what are the policy goals that we are mandated to adhere to are what we are discussing essentially. And then the second half is when we put all the numbers in the machine and crunch them the way we just described how we were supposed to, what did we come up with? It's not a popularity, do people like this rate or not like this rate kind of issue. It's we've been determined the haulers as a matter of policy are entitled as a group, not any individual hauler, are entitled to a 10% return on revenue. And that's a different discussion. If you want to discuss whether that's too high or too low, that's a different discussion to have with the commissioners or with us, and as a separate agenda item kind of thing. But this process, we want to make sure that people understand that the process by which we determine what rate is being proposed and how we arrive at a rate is, as I said earlier, a fairly mechanical, put in the numbers and turn the crank and you get an answer. It is not, should the haulers get a 10% return on revenue. And I'm on record for the last 15 years or 10 years or however long I've been on this committee as preferring a more detailed return on investment, an ROI kind of approach, but I've not been able to prevail. I, like Sandra, have things I would like to have different that have not happened for years. So anyway, that's what I wanted you to understand, Jacob. The meeting next month will not be about, you know, whether or not you like the rate or don't like the rate or anything, just how we arrived at the rate and, you know, what parameters we were directed to use in achieving it. And this is the outcome. So go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to add that we hear you, Jacob, and that's, I think, you know, public engagement is important, even on these considerations. And Ken, what you said is accurate. Those assumptions that go into the machine are the levers to adjust the outcomes of the rate review process. You can't really argue with the financials because they are what they are. But those assumptions in terms of ROR or what's reasonable and what service needs to be provided are the types of things that input can be engaged on with. We are. It's not, doesn't show up on that timeline, Jacob, but we have an interested parties list that is a new tool that staff is using to keep community members that are interested in garbage and recycling topics informed for opportunities for input and comment. And we are planning to notify community members when rates are up for review and when those topics will be before this committee, and there's opportunities to comment like you're exercising now for discussion in this venue. And we will also be having another venue with the Board of Commissioners when they are doing rate review and rate approval processes for another opportunity to engage in that process. So we want to do better, and we want to make sure that you are made aware of those opportunities, and we have committed to doing that. So if you are interested in following that along, please make sure you get signed up for that interested parties list.
Thanks, Thomas, and thanks, Kenneth, both for your volunteer work on the board and for your time tonight. The process itself, it's understandably levers, and it's a CURTA mechanical calculator. You know, you crank the wheel and it gives you, and no one's seen a CURTA, it's a mechanical calculator. You spin the top and the answer comes out. I was just understanding that the 10% and such, but there was a situation last year with additional garbage bins for recycling, for say lawn and leaf recycling, where the increase on that line item was increased 400%, not 10%. And it was decided that oops, it was the haulers needed more. Well, if it's 10% and we're looking at it, then why did that one line go up 400%? Actually, it was greater than 400%. But in any event, that was I just want to be heard that like, okay, if it's 10%, then it should be 10%. So, but thanks for that. And then also I would encourage you to go back and revisit where this says the county shall be able, or county can remove things to be recycled. Because I think that's important that, again, just for you guys who sit on GRAC, if something's going to be changed about it, it needs to go in front of you guys first.
Thanks, Jacob. I will note that section limits the reasons for changes in markets or processing capacity. So the concern that was trying to address is the reason that these materials are not in the mixed recycling is because once you turn something on in a regulatory system, turning it off is really challenging. So going through the process to go through the GRAC, to get a recommendation to take a rule change to the Board of Commissioners can take several weeks, months. And if we have a market collapse, or if we lose a processor that is able to take plastic film or clamshells, for example, we want to be able to immediately stop collecting those materials so that we're not collecting them as recycling and then throwing them in the garbage, because that would be a violation of state law on itself. So that's the why it's in there, but I appreciate your input and concern on that.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. We have one more. We have Matt Browning.
Hey guys, super disappointed in the vote. I want to compare this to Ridwell. Is there anything in this proposal that is objectively better than what is currently offered by Ridwell?
Not sure who you're asking, Matt. And we have this program is not designed to be a Ridwell replacement. This program is designed to offer community members additional recycling collection services. So we're not trying to replicate Ridwell. We're trying to offer a similar service for similar materials. So I don't know if there's really an answer to your question.
And I want to comment because I feel fairly strongly, Ridwell took an approach that said up yours. And absolutely refused to play. And they've done that across the board. And some municipalities have rolled over and not responded, but we did. If you went out and bought an airplane and said, I'm going to set up an airline service between here and Seattle, and I'm going to charge $50 a person to do it, and you, the FAA, can go pound salt, they would last about 30 seconds because the federal government has said everything related to aviation, and especially commercial aviation, is regulated by the FAA, dot, period, end of discussion. We have not been able to take that position, but that's the way it should be handled. If you want to handle public safety and public convenience and regulate it, then you need to have some procedures in place, and the players have to be mandated to play. And they don't get to opt out and say, we're going to do it our way and just ignore you. And that so far has been Ridwell's approach to it. And also Uber and Lyft.
Well, I see things a little bit different than Ken does. I see that if you don't disrupt the status quo, you're not going to get the changes. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about this if they hadn't entered this, they hadn't started this a year ago. And it's because of them that we are now doing this alternative recycling thing. Even though the haulers said that they've been wanting to pass this for several years now, I've been on the board on this committee more than 2 years. I've never heard of anything until Ridwell came into the picture. And I like Uber, I like Airbnb, I like these changes. And I don't like the fact that the haulers are exclusive. That's the way it is. You can see when we voted for this, it wasn't unanimous. There were 2 of us that voted for the exemption. But that's just the way it goes.
It just seems like a colossal waste of public resources, you guys. I mean, what Ridwell offers is a good service. It would be one thing if the proposal were an objectively better service at a lesser cost to the public, but it's not. Everything I've read in the presentation and heard today tells me that it is a lesser service for more money. And I think of all the time and all the people that have been involved in this so far, when you could have just approved Ridwell and have been done with it. Super disappointed.
So get more involved.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Okay,
Anybody
any
else have
other
any comments?
We have no other hands raised.
Thank you all for coming.
All right, thank you, everybody.
We'll see you on the 14th.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you
Good
staff
evening.
for all the work you guys put in
Thanks,
on this.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
So,
Good night.
oh, Brad left already. Okay.
Thanks everyone for attending the March 10th Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee meeting. This video is recorded. It will be posted to our website within 1 week. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.